definitely need to stay till the end. So this is about the brand new archetype coming out in the Ancient Guardians booster box. It is the Abhyss Archetype. So you can already tell just from the name, it's going to be crazy. So it's all divine monsters and curses resembling beasts. It already sounds insane. There are things like Null and Neil being basic serpentine creatures. Um, the art's insane. I haven't read the effects yet. The effects I'm reading right now for you guys, but I can already tell that I have high hopes for this archetype. It looks so cool, and it would be such a shame if the effects aren't that cool and don't match the hype. Null Dreg of the Abyss. So, this is one of the ones that are serpents. I think snakes are awesome, and a divine snake. What more could you want? So, I don't know if all of these are reptiles. They might be. We're gonna have to look. So this one specifically is a light reptile effect monster. It is level 4 with 0 attack and 0 defense. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, send one dark reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard if you control no monsters. Or you control an abyss monster, you can special summon this card from your graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. You cannot special summon monsters while it is face up in the monster zone except for reptile monsters. You can only use the effect once per turn. So, this seems pretty interesting. I'm guessing by the fact that it restricts you to reptile monsters, that the rest of the archetype will probably be reptile monsters. A good thing about this is that you can send it to the graveyard and send another dark reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. So, therefore, send this to the graveyard, you have a light, you use its effect, you can send a dark to the graveyard, and you already have fodder for CED and all of the other chaos monsters. If you control no monsters, or you control an abyss monster, you can special summon it from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. So this is really good for, I'm not actually sure what the rest of the cards are, but for tribute fodder, for links, Xyz, it's not a tuner, and I'm not sure if there are going to be any synchros or anything with this archetype, but so far this is looking great. Special summon it from the graveyard, being able to get a light and the dark monster in the graveyard pretty much immediately. It's already looking pretty good. So the next one that we're going over is Nihil, Dreg of the Abyss. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, send one light reptile monster from the deck to the graveyard. So this one is looking a lot like the Null. If this card is normal or special summoned, add one Abyss spell and trap card from your deck to your hand. You can only use one of each effect of Nihil, Dreg of the Abyss once per turn. So this one is exactly like Null in the fact where it can send a light monster. Basically, if you have this or Null, you send one to the graveyard, you get both in the graveyard, and you can automatically go into things like CED and stuff like that. Where this one is a little bit different, you can normal or special summon it, and you get a search of a spell and trap card from your deck to the hand. That's pretty good. It's an instant search. It's got 2000 defense, 0 attack. It's a dark monster. So I'm guessing that each one of these is a reptile that can send the opposite type to the graveyard, which sounds absolutely broken. You get a handful of darks, you only need one, and then you have a light in your graveyard, and you can access both types. There really is no certain hand that you need to be able to access the other type, because as long as you have lights, you can get darks. As long as you have darks, you can get lights. So that's pretty good. Then we're going on to Phlogy, Haze of the Abyss. This one is another reptile, so I think it's pretty much confirmed. All of the monsters in this archetype are reptiles. This art looks nuts. I am already in love with this art. All of them are like ancient snakes, deities, warriors that are like, I guess you could say like Egypt themed. They're so cool. This is a light level 4 reptile effect monster, 1800 attack, 1400 defense. Pretty big body for level 4. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, or special summoned from the graveyard, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and one monster in the graveyard, with equal or higher attack. Special summon that targeted monster from your graveyard to your opponent's field. And if you do, send the other targeted monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. If this is in your graveyard, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, and add this card to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. So let's break this down a little bit. It's if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, or special summoned from the graveyard, you can target one monster your opponent controls and one monster in their graveyard with an equal higher attack. Special summon that targeted monster from the graveyard to your opponent's field. And if you do, send the other one to the graveyard. So this is actually a pretty interesting card. So let's break this down a little bit. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard or special summoned, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and one monster in the graveyard with equal or higher attack. Special summon that targeted monster from your opponent's graveyard to the opponent's field. That's pretty nuts, quite honestly. So you have to think about it a little more. Basically, you can bring this back and use the effect on the opponent's turn. Yeah, some things have to be aligned, but depending on the spell and trap card effects, this could be pretty easy to pull off. You basically get to destroy an opponent's monster, and you get to remove a monster from their graveyard and put it on the field. So if they have a deck that everything relies in the graveyard, you get to bring it out of the graveyard, where it would be the most effective, and place it on the field. I'm not sure if that's the best in most circumstances, however, at least it's an option. So I don't know, maybe this deck is just good against mirror matches. That would be really strange. But I'm not even sure if this would be very good against Eldritch. Because what would you do? Add Eldritch to the field? Like, that doesn't make any sense. At that point, banishing it's better. But you are also sending a monster from your opponent's field to the graveyard. So you could just pick your poison and see which one is a lesser threat. So it's pretty good. It's technically a removal. And in certain circumstances, you get to, like... And in certain circumstances, you get to, I guess, hit them twice. I don't really see that as all that good. I would rather just a blanket removal, like a banish and a destruction. That would be nice. But this is interesting. I'm pretty excited to see what the rest of the cards are. But I still can't get over the artwork. Zoha, Haze of the Abyss. Yet another one that has the super cool armor, super cool weapon. It is a dark monster this time. We're seeing a pattern, one of each type, one of each, like, I guess you could say artwork. There was one light snake, one dark snake, one, like, warrior that was light, and one warrior that's dark. It is a reptile, level 4, 1500 attack, 1700 defense. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon it from the graveyard. You can have your opponent draw one card, and if they do, you add one Abyss monster from your deck to your hand, except Zoha, Haze of the Abyss. Then each player sends one card from their hand to the graveyard. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, add this card to your hand. So this one is actually interesting. You don't really want your opponent drawing cards. Because that really helps them out. However, the good thing is that you also get to add an Abyss monster from your deck to your hand, which will fuel your combos, because as we've seen so far, most of them, at least the two snakes that we went over at the beginning, you send them to the graveyard, and you get to fuel your graveyard for all of your other plays. So I think this is a really interesting, yeah, your opponent gets some advantage too, but I feel like since you're using this on your turn, if you're going for an OTK, then it doesn't matter if your opponent has an extra card, unless they happen to draw some card like Ash, for example. Curse, Dawn of the Abyss. So we're going into the boss monsters now. I believe these are going to be some of the deities, and this one is the light deity. If we're going by the same system, I guess you could say, then the next one is going to be a dark. This is a level 8 reptile monster, 400 attack, 2400 defense. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute one monster, special summon this card. Then your opponent can special summon one monster from their graveyard, but negate its effects. If this card is special summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower Abyss monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use the effect once per turn. So, if this card is in your graveyard, you basically just get to tribute a monster, summon this card. Your opponent gets to summon a monster with no effects, and then you get to summon another level 4 lower monster in your graveyard. That's an Abhyss monster. So you're basically sacrificing one, summoning two, and your opponent gets to summon one with negated effects. I mean, yeah, it's good. It's a level 8 monster. Um, it's really not all that good for offensive purposes. You get to bring back one of your combo pieces. You get to bring back this. So, it's interesting. I'm more excited to see what you can actually make with these monsters, like what the extra deck's all about. Owlette, Dusk of the Abyss. I love the artwork. I've said this so many times. This is a dark reptile effect monster, level 8, 2000 attack, 800 defense. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute one monster, special summon this card, then your opponent can add one monster from their graveyard to their hand. If this card is special summoned, you can target two of your banished monsters, including at least one reptile monster, return them to the graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. This card is really interesting. I'm not sure if it'd be used as 3 in this deck, but the part that I really do like about this card is the fact that you can bring your banished monsters back into your graveyard. So after you go into monsters like CED or Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the beginning, then you can go into this and you can bring back the two monsters you banished, put them in your graveyard, and go into another one. And there's just other things that you can do because you're basically bringing back the same fodder and you get to use it twice. Now, the other thing I like is the fact that you can tribute a monster, special summon this card. So let's say you had like a light monster on the field, and you had a dark monster in your graveyard. You tribute the light monster, bring this out, and then you can have both of them in your graveyard. But you get to do this from your graveyard, so it's just more graveyard control about like what kind of monsters you have. Then your opponent gets to add one monster from their graveyard to the hand. I'm not a big fan of that effect. I feel like most of these cards have another way for your opponent to get extra cards as well, which makes it a bit worse in general. But I do think this card has some pretty good. Uh, but I do think this card has a couple good effects and a couple good scenarios which it would really be used for. Like I said, this entire thing is probably going to be used just as a vassal for the chaos strategy, and chaos just makes it so much better. Aaron, King of the Abyss. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute two monsters, special summon this card. If your opponent adds a card to their hand except during the draw phase, you can send one random card from their hand to the graveyard. If a monster your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add one light or dark reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard to your hand. Except Aaron, King of the Abyss. You can only activate each effect once per turn. So off the top, if it's in your graveyard, tribute two monsters, special summon it. Okay, you can summon it from the graveyard. That's cool. It's got some pretty good stats. If your opponent adds a card if your opponent adds a card to their hand, except during the draw phase, you get to discard a random card. That's pretty good too. If your opponent has a monster that's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, then you get to add a monster from your deck to your hand. Not only do you get to search with this card, but you have hand removal. It's pretty good all around. I really do like it. No protection, no destruction, except for hand destruction. But in general, I do like this card. It has pretty good versatility, and it's a really good weapon for destroying people's hands. I've also noticed some different things that would combo up, I guess, in this deck. Forgot which one it was, but there was a card that you get to summon a monster from your graveyard and the opponent draws a card. If you had that, activated that effect, and this was on the field, you're not only getting a card on your field, but you are sending a card that they just got to the graveyard and possibly even searching a light or dark monster. So you might be getting two monsters and sending a monster from their deck to the graveyard. Pretty good, not gonna lie. The last monster of this archetype, Amnesia, Queen of the Abyss. I've actually read this one card, and I really do like it. I think it carries part of the entire archetype. If this card is in your graveyard, tribute two monsters, special summon this card. That's not unique to this specific card. If a monster is special summoned from your opponent's graveyard, you can send one card your opponent controls to the graveyard. If a monster is sent from the opponent's hand or deck to the graveyard, you can special summon one light or dark reptile monster from your graveyard. So think about it like this. You have the Amusia, you have the Aaron, and you have the card that lets them draw a card. You use the effect, they draw a card, you get to send a card from their hand to the graveyard, you get to activate this effect, and when you activate this effect, you get to special summon another light or dark while searching a light and dark because of the other effect. But what another thing I like is if a monster special summon from your opponent's graveyard, you get to send a card your opponent controls to the graveyard. So you're sending. But another thing I like about this card is the fact that if a monster is summoned from your opponent's graveyard, you can send a card your opponent controls to the graveyard. So you're sending a card from their hand to the graveyard, you're sending a card from their field to the graveyard, and you're searching twice with the Amusia, Aaron, and the other card effect. So if you just have that combo, you're getting 3 cards into your hand, special summoning one to your side of the field, popping a card on their field, and getting a card out of the hand. Pretty good combo. So that was all of the monsters. Let's get on with the spells and traps. I'm really interested to see what those effects are. I don't think we have all of the cards for this archetype, and I'm pretty excited to see what the rest of them are. But I really want to see how the spells and traps work in this deck. So let's go look. I was very excited to see this, and I hope I am not let down. The archetype has so much potential with the monsters, especially with Chaos. If you have Chaos as an engine, you can't really go wrong with this archetype. Things like Chaos Space will carry any flaws this archetype has. So starting with Depths of the Abyss. Seems like it's a field spell, and its effect probably, hopefully, good. The art on all of these cards is so good. If for no other reason do I want to get these cards than just the fact that the art is amazing. I hope that this carries it because there are some problems with the actual archetype itself. It doesn't really have all that much protection for any of the cards, and none of the cards are really all that beefy, I guess. So, Depths of the Abyss. If a face-up reptile monster you control is destroyed by a battle or an opponent's card effect, you can target one card your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. I like that. It doesn't destroy. It targets, but it doesn't destroy. Basically, every time a reptile monster you control is destroyed, it's a 1-for-1. This card in its owner's field zone. If this is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can send. If this card in its owner's field if this card in its owner's field zone If this card in its owner's field zone is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can send the top cards. You can send cards from the top. You can send cards from the top of your opponent's deck to the graveyard, equal to the number of reptile monsters with different names in your graveyard. Okay, the second effect kind of a letdown, and it's a once per turn effect. So, I mean, there's really no point in making this a mill. I mean, you can try. At least you can try making it a mill if you want. I wouldn't recommend it at all. And I'm kind of let down the fact that it's a once per turn. But still, I guess you use it, and if your monster gets destroyed, you can destroy a card. But it's just one. Why not just play things like Chaos Space? Quite honestly, I think I'm more let down by the spell than I was. So it's looking like this is the So it's looking like this is the only spell card that I could find. They might come out with more spell cards in the future. They still have like 4 months, or something like that to come out with all this. But this is the only spell card I could find, and I'm kind of let down by it, quite honestly. Um, I'm gonna continue looking, and I'm probably gonna have a part 2 to this because I have some ideas for upload, or maybe the one after that. I got some ideas, but we're gonna continue with the traps And I did find a couple traps that caught my eye. So we're gonna look at those. So the first one was Invasion of the Abyss. This one is just a normal trap. You can special summon 2 Abyss tokens. Reptile, Dark, level 2, 0 attack, 0 defense. If you have 8 or more Abyss monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can apply this effect instead. Special summon 2 Reptile monsters with different names from your graveyard. You can only activate 1 per turn. This card's really good. Quite honestly, if you have 8 in your graveyard, you have something like Aaron and Amusa in your graveyard, you get to activate this, bring out both of your boss monsters, and you can just start ripping out your opponent's hand, destroying all their cards, and just have a good time with it, I guess. But one thing I do like about all of these cards is that it doesn't specify that it has to be an Abyss monster for most of the special summoning. So you can have other archetypes and engines that have like reptile monsters. You know what? You know what's coming up next? An Alien Abyss deck profile. Yep, definitely. Aliens are just so underrated, you know? I bet most people don't even know that alien's an actual archetype. No, but I'm joking. The aliens really do suck. However, you could technically do it, and it might be a little more viable than normal because you have all these special summoning. So this deck, it's going to be Chaos Abyss, and it's going to be great. Emptiness of the Abyss as our second trap card. This is a quick. This is a continuous trap card. During the main phase, you contribute 1 reptile effect monster, target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your field, but send it to the graveyard during the end phase. You can only use this effect once per turn. If this face-up card is sent to the graveyard, send all face-up non-reptile monsters you control to the graveyard. Oh. So this is an interesting card. I'm not too great with rulings and stuff, but it's looking like you activate this card, you tribute a reptile effect monster, you steal an opponent's monster from the graveyard, summon it to your field, at the end of the turn, it gets sent to the graveyard. Again. But it sounds like this card stays on the field. However, this is a really dangerous card. If your opponent pops this card, it nukes your entire board of everything that's not a reptile monster. So it's dangerous to have this card because things like CED and the Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Beginning and all the other Chaos Dragon monsters and all that stuff, they're not reptiles. They're dragons and warriors and all of that stuff. So it's a bit dangerous to have a one-sided nuke on your board, just basically sitting there for whenever your opponent wants to bomb you. However, in an OTK scenario, stealing an opponent's monster from the graveyard not only prevents them from using that monster if they have a graveyard synergized deck, but it also gives you an extra monster that you can use to further your combos if that's what you're planning on doing with the monster, or just having an extra monster. I'm not sure if this is worth putting in the deck, because like I said, it's a bit scary to have a one-sided nuke. So this is all I could find for the entire Abhyss archetype. I may just be missing obvious cards, or maybe I'm not looking in the right places. If you guys could find more, please tell me where you found it. I couldn't find any more, but from what I see right now, this has the potential to be a tier 1 deck. Because the way I'm thinking of it is having things like the Depth of the Abyss at like a 1, some Invasion, and having things like Amnesia, Aaron, and Phlogy, Nihil, and like Null. Having all of these cards in your deck with a big Chaos package and some other, possibly even Dragon Link. Quite honestly. Oh no. Hold up. Are we giving Dragon Link more potential? No. I don't want to see Dragon Link starting to I don't want to see Dragon Link abusing the Abhyss deck too. Please. Anything but that. Dragon Link doesn't need more cards. It really doesn't. So I cancel everything I said. This deck really sucks. Dragon Link players, completely ignore this. Don't use it. Don't use Null Nihil. Don't use Aaron. Don't use any of these cards. They're just super bad. You know. I may use these cards, but just yeah, you should ignore them. Quite honestly. Um, but like I said, if you guys found any other places where you found the rest of the cards, please tell me in the description. Please tell me in the comment section. I genuinely want to know. I'm probably going to come out with a deck list. I'm going to keep looking for other cards. And subscribe if you like my content. Subscribe for the giveaway. It's going to be after this is released. And I'm just going to be giving it away for free. Still figuring out how I'm going to do it, but I definitely will. It's going to be very cool. I might even do a booster box opening and the giveaway at the same time. But I am sorry for the wait for the last couple weeks where I haven't been posting. Like I said, I've had computer problems. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to have to keep looking for the rest of the cards. And have a good day. I will see you next time. You guys should also go check out my Discord. We have some cool people, some other cool Twitch streamers, YouTubers, some of my friends, some of the subscribers. We just got some cool people all around that you guys can talk to. I'm there. I respond to people most of the time. It's just a really cool environment to hang out with, and you can find the link in the about page of my YouTube channel. So you should definitely just click that, join the Discord, and come chat with us.